Well, welcome everybody. We are here with Glenn Miller, who is our Vice President of Business Solutions, and Miriah Cassidy, Senior Director of Sales Support. Hi guys, thanks for being here.
Thank you, glad to be here.
So let's start off and learn a little bit more about what each of you does here at American.
Go ahead.
Well, I lead our sales support team, and the team is comprised of multiple different departments. So our traditional CSRs that work with the sales associates in processing their invoices, the prompt pay compliance team that processes all the vendor bills. To start off the process, the apps training and support team that works with our users in the field on both Mfiles and PeopleSoft. And then also our expanded services team. So the team that helps out sales associates that are on a growth pattern and looking for additional assistance in placing their orders. And we also have promo sourcing and graphic art as well.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of departments.
125 people across the United States. So
wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Glenn.
Hi, I lead two different groups. I've got the Business Solutions group and the Supply Chain Solutions group. So the Business Solutions group really drives everything around our ERP solution today. And so what we've got is the short, medium and long-term direction support of where we're going from an ERP standpoint, and anything that integrates third-party softwares, third-party e-commerce solutions, sourcing tools, and things that integrate into the ERP system. On the supply chain side, kind of oversee the warehouse. We have two warehouses that are company run. There are several that are sales associate run and a lot of 3PLs. So we kind of provide strategic advice and operation of warehousing and supply chain things, and then overseeing the freight logistics areas at American as well.
Sure. And so you two work on a lot of projects together, and you guys have a lot of shared goals. So what are some of those, I guess, the things that set you apart, or the things that you focus on individually versus together?
Well, my focus now is more, obviously, it's from the ERP system, more on the current and future direction of the technology, of which Miriah's group is one of the biggest user communities. And then process is, and I'll let Miriah address this a little bit more, but process is also real important to be looking at when you're designing and supporting systems for the most efficiency. And Miriah may agree or disagree, but I would say process is where we find our common ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would agree with Glenn. I think as far as where my team comes into the relationship with Glenn's team, we have the people, so we have the users, and we're gathering the information and the feedback from the user to be able to represent them to Glenn's team, where we cross into the process piece. So how are we processing things on our side, and then working with Glenn's team and trying to figure out which technology fits. So what is our solution? But really almost any project that crosses into the process world, at some point in time, we end up communicating and partnering with Glenn's team.
And my areas are just super fun.
You guys can't see this, but Miriah just shot a look of contempt across the table.
Won't be the last one.
We have been known to have contests when things like this come up, and Glenn claims that he's the most super fun or the best at things like pies and other activities. But
here we go.
Yeah, we won't get into that because Glenn gets upset about losing. So.
We're kind of competitive. In a friendly
You
way.
would never guess.
We are kind of competitive. That's a good way of putting that. So yeah, we have fun. So that's kind of where we bridge, across the whole spectrum of people, process, technology.
Right.
And I think we work well together at that across the board.
Yeah, I think that's really clear.
At the home office, but across our two areas, there's always been
right.
strong partnership in making that happen. I mean, it's like I said, it's easier before. She's the biggest user group and manages that user group that's in the system every day, all day long. There's a lot of other part-time users around the country, but this is the group that we try to drive our development off of, because that's where efficiency and effectiveness make the biggest bang for the buck, to be honest. So.
Sure.
And I think that partnership, what that helps out with as well, is when we run into situations where it may not be ready for a technology type solution, at least we can walk through the process together and find some way to make it better. And it may be just changing up how we're processing something, and then looking towards the future and getting it on the roadmap, that if we see growth in that area, then we look towards technology, but making really good decisions, so we make the best use of our times in both teams.
Sure.
And that comes across when we talk integrations too. Many times we've got an immediate and an urgent need to get information out of some customer or another third-party solution and get it into our ERP system for management and tracking and financials. And a full integration with that third party might not be able to be done right away for a variety of reasons, but we've come up with a lot of creative ways, and where we've partnered together in order to get information out of a system. We go through some manual and automated mapping, and then we do an upload into the system. So I think we've done a really good job of creatively getting, end of the day, we need to get things done here. So whether we can do it the perfect way the first time, or whether we have to do it iteratively to get there, the end result is sales associates got an opportunity. There's a customer out on the far end of this, and if there's anything that we've figured out how to do quickly and well, let's serve that end customer with that need. And we do what it takes to get that done.
Sure.
And it really, there's such a large scope of the users that we service, and so we kind of look at it like we have 3 different customers. We have our sales associates, we have our end users and their clients, and then we also have our vendors. And so through looking at process and looking at technology, we have to make sure that we're providing solutions to all 3 customers. So it may not be even a situation where it has any effect on the end user. So we look at like our vendor integrations, and it provides, when we look to a vendor integration, what we're looking for is a gain for our sales associates, some type of efficiency, a gain for the home office, and then also a gain for our supplier or vendor.
Sure, I like that. So when should our sales associates approach you guys or really reach out? When would you suggest they go to you for help?
Probably the short answer is anytime they need help, that they can't figure something out. Something doesn't seem right, it's taking too long, it's too cumbersome, they can't figure out a way to get this done on their own. They should reach out. I would start most times with Miriah's area, because there's a support and training area that could take that official triage call, if you want to call it that. And then if they can't figure it out process-wise and we need some systems development, they're good at framing up the user requirements, and we're able to move forward with that. But short answer is anytime they need help.
Cool.
And we can't stress enough that if they're experiencing some type of an issue, more than likely somebody else is as well. And so we base a lot of our roadmap items on the feedback that we receive from the users. And so if we don't hear from them, it doesn't gain enough momentum for us to put it on the roadmap. We categorize all of the requests that come in to our apps training and support team. So every call, every email is tracked from a subject standpoint, from an issue standpoint. And so it's very important that they voice what they're experiencing.
And if we're hearing from multiple people similar themes or similar issues, that's going to drive far more speed when it comes to the development side than just a one-off type of situation.
We're looking for the biggest benefit. And so if we have an efficiency situation that's occurring and it affects 45 different sales offices or different users,
50. Or 50 or 5,
or
I'm getting that look again. I'm getting that look again. Okay, continue on. Sorry.
Anyway, it's going to have much more momentum than something that has 3. So make sure it's important that you voice your thought process on that, and don't allow Glenn to distract you from your future vision either, and what you're asking for. He's good at that.
That's a good point.
On the positive side, though, too, we're talking about when do you contact Glenn's area or my area. We talk about problems. We're inefficient, or we have different pieces going on, but also when you're nervous. So if you have an opportunity and you're worried that you aren't going to be able to handle it, at least make a call and see if there's something that either one of us or a partnership between the two of us can do to make that opportunity possible. Because sometimes I think, especially for our sales associates that may be in a growth pattern and don't have their own staff in their office, and they may be just a one-person show, that they get nervous about taking on opportunities and looking at it, but we may be able to find a solution that makes it minimal effort for them, but they can still go after that sale and that relationship with the client.
And I think the important thing there is that they reach out when there are situations. It may not be ours, but we also have strong, communications and pipelines over to the SOS teams or the ACES teams, finance teams, the GPO teams. We're going to do what we can do, but if it's outside of our bailiwick, we're going to get it to where it belongs right away and make sure that the end of the game is getting everybody served in as timely as we can with the right people.
Sure. So what are some other, you guys have already done a great job of mentioning some common themes that pop up, but maybe what are some more challenges that you guys see just day to day from our sales associates?
I think, from an efficiency standpoint, something that we get feedback on is, I've grown 5% in the last year, but I had to add a whole person to my office, and I'm not sure what they're doing, but it's not working. And so whenever somebody says, well, I'm not sure what's going on, but it's not working, we try and kind of guide steps to dive a little bit deeper into it to figure out what the root of the problem is, because you can't fix something just by knowing that it's not working. You have to really dive into it. But I think that both, if you would agree, Glenn, both, your team and my team, we hear that from people. It's not working.
Yeah, that's true.
So
let's say that I call in and say, my office isn't running as smooth as possible. What are some first steps that you might take, or somebody can maybe just evaluate right now of their own office or maybe their own book of business?
I think, as when we look at efficiency, Glenn and I partnered together and we implemented Mfiles in the home office, and I think that, that is our paperless solution, document management solution. But at the start of that, we had to figure out where the problem was. We knew that it wasn't fast enough, it wasn't strong enough, and it wasn't going to support us for growth. And so an exercise that we did, and it is old school, but it works time and time again, you can change it up, is just looking at how many times you touch something within a process. And so what we did was we attached a piece of paper onto 250 vendor invoices, and every time that somebody touched it or processed it, they had to write the time down, they had to write their name down, and we discovered that there were a lot more touches in the process than what we realized. And it relates back to the sales associate, because they're not necessarily in front of their support staff. They're generally out in front of their client. And so to know, dig into it and look at when their staff processes an order from start to finish until they get it into PeopleSoft, what are they doing? How many times is it getting passed back and forth? Are they filing things that are never touched again? Do they really need it? Because sometimes you have to go, I'm attached to it, but I don't really need it, so I have to be able to let it go in order to gain that efficiency back.
Well, that's a good example. That's a perfect example from what we've actually done here in the past successfully here at the home office. But that same process does lie out in everybody, whether you're individual or you're in a larger sales hub. It starts by looking at that process, and it's not how many times, it's how many times and how many people and how many times is this physically moving something from here to here to here.
Sure.
How many times do you have to look at something before you make a decision on it, and what's that process? You can go anywhere from the office cycle to the sales cycle within your area and go, where do I streamline steps? Am I in the middle of something am I just an unnecessary in the middle? I've got to approve things, but 99 times out of 100, the team's making a good decision, so you just get out of the way and let it go and support them on the one time it's not right.
Sure.
So.
And I know you guys actually, Miriah, you just mentioned the word resistance. When people are confronted with change, do you feel like we get that a lot? In our company, do people push back on that? And if they do, how do we combat that? What are some ways that we can kind of deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's there's a natural resistance to change, but I won't, I've been a lot of different places. That's not unique to American. Changing and taking yourself outside of your comfort zone, out of what you know, and into kind of an unknown where you're kind of venturing out and looking at different possibilities, trying to find a better way is very, very uncomfortable for a lot of people. I've been lucky to work with people like Miriah. It's not an uncomfortable zone for us, but it's an uncomfortable zone sometimes for the teams we work with, or the teams we lead, or the teams we work around, or the sales force. So it's something we do have to deal with every day. The best thing on that is be transparent, be open, communicate early and often what the end goal you're trying to achieve is. Be open to feedback and adaptations to that plan along the way, because we're all smarter than, the whole world is a little smarter than just Miriah and I. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not as
maybe
not as
you
smart
never
as
know.
Miriah, but I kind of dumbed us down a little bit when I got into it. But
I'm actually very lucky that my team is way smarter than I am. So I go back to them for feedback, and I know Glenn does this with his team as well. When you're working through change and working through processes, that it is so important to get their feedback and to keep them in the loop early, and give them as much information as they can really consume. And then saying, the other thing is that change doesn't have to be scary, because if the change doesn't work, you don't have to stay there. Like, you're not signing a contract to say we're going to change this process and then we stick with it and we don't ever modify it. If you're making positive change towards the future, you should be anticipating that change is going to change again, and it is going to change again and again and again.
Great point.
And it's very fluid.
I think, a good example of that is what's ended up with what we've done and we're continuing to do and continuing to refine with Mfiles. It was really a process for workflowing the driver of our business, which is that vendor invoice coming in to get to the final invoice. I was leading the first time we tried that manually through the initiation of the Prompt Pay Compliance team, and it was an epic fail because we didn't do that right. Okay, we went for a while. We tried to rectify it in process. We were maybe a month in, and we bailed on it. Went back to the old process for the time being. We backed up, started looking at. That's when we started finding Mfiles. We did a kind of a wide search on document management software. We settled on Mfiles, and then. Thankfully, I was much smarter the second time around, and Miriah led the rest of that implementation and really used the focus groups and used her teams and used everything to kind of move that change forward to where it was easier to implement. I wouldn't say we did it in baby steps, but that's the term. We kind of pushed that in at a pace that at least the vast majority of the team could handle from a change standpoint, because not everybody can adapt at the same pace. But the second time, we learned from the first time, backed off our position, and then came back at it a different way. The goal was still there. We still needed to get there. We needed to touch it less. We needed some more automation. We needed less, in our buildings, running up and downstairs with buckets full of folders every day. So.
And I think that, another point that Glenn just made indirectly is that you have to have a change champion. You have to have somebody that is going to own it, that believes in it, that is going to be open and not prideful. So taking in feedback and saying, yeah, maybe I was wrong, we'll make a modification. Because at the point in time, in the process that Glenn's talking about, when the decision was made to abandon the first process, take from it what we could, take the knowledge from it, but move on to the next one. What triggered that was a full team department meeting and somebody saying, hey guys, we're done, this isn't working. But we acted on that feedback. And that was one of the most important turning points there, because the team, I don't think up to that point had felt that their feedback drove as much as it should. And so I would say, as advice out to our sales associates that are trying to make positive change in their office, you need a champion. but you also need to make sure that that champion is the right person and that they're willing to listen.
Yep.
And to be able to work through the noise. You have to know the difference between I don't like the fact that I have to do something different and I don't like this because it's not working. There's a big difference there.
Sure.
Agreed.
Well put. So just to pivot a little bit here, you guys both talked about how you have large teams underneath you and you work very closely with a lot of these teams. And, we, even before we started recording here today, we were kind of joking around about how we kind of have different levels of generations, even just in this room, in this episode, but then also throughout the company. How does that change the way you manage and the way that you look at operations and how we move forward at American?
You go ahead. I'm the oldest one here. I'll wait.
Glenn keeps deferring to Miriah.
I want to hear what the millennials have to say first.
I am actually a extreme border millennial Gen X, and I can go either direction depending on the situation. So
We'll see your
I think
ambidextrous.
I am. I think I can identify. I can identify either way. But I think that the biggest takeaway from that is each generation does seem to have a little bit different motivator, and so you have to know how to motivate your teams and what drives them, and also where they want to go, because it might be that you have somebody who is in that Gen X group or even the baby boomer group where their desire is not necessarily to move up in the company. They want to do really well in their position and they want to feel in control of their position. So you have to find ways to motivate them, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you have other individuals that could cross any of the generations, but you tend to find it a lot in the millennial group where the expectation is I have a fast growth pattern and I can move up in the company really rapidly. And so you have to find ways to motivate and challenge them that keeps them satisfied in a changing environment as well as your stable environment. So I think that and Glenn, you tell me if you found this
I thought you were going to say I've lived through all these. So yeah,
you've lived through all
I've lived
those.
through almost everything. On the tail end of my life, I did it.
But I think that a mistake you can make in a leader is just automatically categorizing somebody into their generation and thinking that they're going to react the way that generation may be like normalized at. But you would be surprised. Sometimes you have a major outlier, and so you should always make sure you're presenting the same opportunities until you really get to know that person to them regardless.
Yeah, I would agree. The last thing you want to do, regardless of which one of these, published generations you're in, is stereotype. Treat everybody in that generation in a stereotypical fashion that everybody thinks that way. That's not true. There's major differences within that. But yeah, you have to be the older you get, like me, the more you get to be a fossil, the more you have to be able to see. I used to have to when I was younger, I used to have to figure out how do you manage the generation ahead of me, and there wasn't one behind me. And then as you slide up the ladder, you start. I'm managing obviously less people now that are older than me that are still in the workforce because we're old. And it's more of the next two generations behind, and it has changed a lot. Expectations have changed a lot. Just their ability to deal with technological changes has changed a lot, and as a whole. But each individual is different. You still have to treat everybody and try to motivate them as an individual. There's never been a cookie cutter approach to that, and there still isn't. So,
sure. Great insights. So I guess the final question that I'm going to ask you guys, what do you have set in place for goals for you personally, but then also you as a department moving forward in this next year?
Sure, I'll start with this one. Our department, we've got several different things. We're on our existing ERP system, which is the app system. We are in the process of going through like current state, desired state, and we're going to develop a stakeholder list of projects that we're going to do based on return on investment, user ease, and we're going to work on some low-hanging fruit and continue to develop where we need to within that platform. At the same time, we're simultaneously on the front end of starting a pretty aggressive timeline to evaluate and select what our next ERP solution is going to be like that's going to carry us through the next decade and beyond. That's a big piece. And then the third prong of the business solutions side is really integrations with third parties. We're in addition to integrating with our proprietary e-commerce system, we are every day increasingly being challenged to come up with an easy way to interface into the current and any future ERP system, third-party e-commerce solutions, third-party sourcing tools, third-party payment portals, third-party CRM systems, just about anything you can think of that manage the entire order life cycle, here at ASB. And it's changing all the time with every different acquisition and every new person we add on the sales side. It brings new, I'm going to say challenges, it brings new opportunities. So those are the three major things we're going to be making significant progress on in this year, and then we'll grow from there. On the supply chain solution side, we're going to be handling rapid growth over in our Starbuck facility, but all my attention is really right now working on better tools for us to be able to better identify our best freight and logistics spend. So whether that's either the major carriers, it's the Postal Service, we are bringing tools into play that are going to allow us better access to data, which is also what the new ERP systems will do, is we're going to have better access to data and able to report off that, get to trends, identify them faster, and better manage the company for the long haul. Ours is all about scalability and moving forward with that. So every initiative we have is about scalability, ease of use, and just building a better mousetrap. So,
great. Sounds aggressive. I like it.
How about you, Glenn?
My personal goals is, I've been here 6 years. From the very get-go, I came here and I started out as Vice President of Operations. That's where Miriah and I first started working for. I'm now Vice President of Business Solutions. I am pretty clear. I didn't come here to be CEO. I didn't come here to be president. I came in here as a Vice President level. My plans will be I will retire from American. And the other thing I will be crystal clear on is I will lead whatever initiatives the Zavagios ask me to lead. It's that simple.
Sounds good.
I'm pretty easy to...
Are you retiring in the next year?
I am not retiring in the next year.
Oh, good, okay. My original question was the next year, so you scared me a little, Glenn.
No. I've got
we have you for a long time.
I've got a senior in high school who's going to go to outstate tuition college in Nebraska. I have a daughter who graduates from Bemidji State next December, but's immediately going to go for her master's degree. So I'm going to be paying, going to be making sure that I stay in the game long enough until the kids prove they can pay their own bills.
Good. Miriah, what do you have on your plate?
Well, in the next year, as far as my department, we are working towards an even deeper rollout of Mfiles, and so we have been kind of on this crazy demo path. I get at least probably 2 or 3 calls a week from sales associates. Really, after our annual conference, we had a major push, and I really hope that we continue to see that. And so we're doing demos of Mfiles. So our document management solution that we're utilizing in the home office, our goal is to get that rolled out to the field. And so we see our field offices utilizing it from a document management and a workflow solution standpoint, so managing their quotes and their proofs, and just providing that additional piece of technology to them to help them manage their business. So that's a really big piece. We're rolling that out to our expanded services team. The goal with the expanded services team is like the goal that we have with the sales offices, but a little different. When somebody utilizes expanded services, they're paying a fee for the service that they're receiving. what we want to be able to do is to give them feedback on what they're getting in return for that fee. And so the conversion of quotes, of proofs, how many presentations are returning into actual orders, and what did that mean to them, and to their bottom line. So to be able to provide some metrics and feedback on that, and then also case studies. I think that we have a really great group of sales associates that are in that mode right now, where they're like, okay, I'm about ready, and I want to get bigger, but I am a little bit nervous, and I don't want to hire somebody because I'm not quite ready for that yet. And that's where expanded services comes in. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to commit to this for the rest of my life, and maybe I commit to this for the next year. I commit to this for the next 2 years until I see enough growth where I can hire somebody in my office. And so I would like to see us to being able to provide more case studies in that area. And so that service is a little bit more accessible to that group of sales associates. I say to my team, and I say this to my whole leadership team, it's the year of expanded services. So I think that it's something, and for me, it's my newest acquired area. Mm-hmm. So I'm enjoying getting to know what they do and understanding that aspect of the business as well. And so there's a heavy focus on that. In sales support and prompt gate compliance, we have very regimented metrics that we continually hit every single month, and what that equates to is timely billing for our customers and making sure that we're keeping things flowing and processing through the system properly. So that's a big piece. And education. I think, we try really hard to provide it for our leadership team, and we're starting to kind of have fingers into other areas within my team as well, where we're providing more training on Excel, more training on, how do I handle difficult situations, where it's more about the growth of people rather than just, this is how you do this in apps. That's a part of it, but we also want to grow our people as well. So, a lot going on, and I think that a lot of it is people-based. We are also right now expanding our Missouri office location, which we're really excited about. Glenwood, we in this area, we tend to start to run out of resources, and when you have a large team and we have a great sales force that is growing, we need to be able to support them, and so we have to be able to find those proper resources. And so we are expanding the Missouri office in St. Genevieve, and we're really excited about that. We were able to expand our space, and
you recently added an expanded resource down in the Dallas, Texas market. Yeah, and the point, one of the points, and that's just another challenge that we all face in all of our areas is attracting staff. I mean, Minnesota is a very low unemployment state in the country, and Pope County is the lowest, one of the lowest unemployment rates in this state, and therefore probably in the country. So continuing to find good people, because initially in Miriah's area, when they start, you literally need to bring them in for some they're going to have to be here for some extended training before you're going to do the work at home initiatives that you've limited. Same thing with developers and any of the technical people over in Pfeiffer's area or the other. I mean, it's getting harder to attract people in here. So Miriah's work at home initiative, she started late last year, early fiscal year. That's continued and will continue to grow for her. And again, just the type of solutions we're picking for the teams to use has to be very mobile. It has to be very work from home or work remote friendly going forward. So those are all the considerations we're putting into play, because what we're trying to do is trying to drive a consistent experience, not like the pie thing you did yesterday. That was
We probably need to explain a little bit of these pie jokes at some point.
I'm getting a look again. So
yeah, there was a pie contest yesterday between Glenn and Miriah. And we don't have to go into it too much, or else Glenn will start crying.
To the point where everybody understands that I was the clear winner, and Glenn is a little bit bitter.
I'm a little bitter.
I believe I received harassing text messages until the early evening last night. So
possibly.
So very gracious loser.
So where our sales force and our home office team benefits from that is. It's good that Glenn is driving the ERP initiative, because he hates to lose. So it will be a winner. It will be a winner, and that's it ties into another initiative of ours, is just gathering feedback to be able to feed that information over to Glenn's team as well, because we are in touch with the users on a daily basis. So it's gathering all of that. I think we've been sending information over for 6 months now as we're able to kind of round that up from the user group. So
sure. And finally, what are your personal goals? What do you see yourself?
Well, I am actually back in school. I started back in school about a year ago, and so my goal right now is just to continue to work towards completing my degree, and then to continue on for my MBA, so I can say I'm as smart as Glenn, and actually have it hanging up on the wall as proof. No, but it's always been a goal of mine to go back, and I think that it's important that even when you are lucky to experience success in your career, that you make sure that you continue to grow yourself personally as well. I've really enjoyed the experience so far. We run into a lot of different things at American, and it's the biggest problem-solving platform that I've ever worked at. So I think you learn a lot, but I think it's also important to have that exposure to some outside sources and outside people as well. And then, I am, as much as you wouldn't think, I'm a little bit more socially stunted, like as far as like networking and that type of thing. So for me personally,
I have a hard time believing that, Miriah. I have a hard time.
This is an easy forum for me, but you put like networking lunch on an agenda, and I start sweating. Like, it's not a comfortable situation. So I think just forcing myself to be in some of those scenarios. I'm going to the Women's Leadership Conference in June, and spending more time out in sales offices and that type of thing. So just kind of, and that goes back to change that we've talked about throughout this whole thing. if you've ever repotted a plant, if you take a plant and you put it in a bigger pot, but you don't rough up the roots a little bit and kind of mess with it, it doesn't grow bigger. It's in a bigger pot, but it doesn't know that. So I think it's important for you personally, and if you're leading teams or you're driving initiatives, to really be okay with roughing up the roots a little bit.
I love that. What a perfect analogy to end our...
Yeah, this is why I like working with her. She's very... She takes the way of explaining things that are inherently business and complicated, and you have a way of putting that into an analogy that's really simple. You know what I mean? For everybody to understand. That's cool. I can't do that.
Thank you, guys.
I can't do that.
Well, thank you guys for being here and for explaining a lot of this operational. There's so many details that go into both of your positions, and you guys have such a wealth of knowledge that I think it'll really help our sales associates and everybody who's affiliated with American. So thank you.
Well, thank you for hosting us here. And again, I think for the listeners here, I hope they can understand that, we take our jobs pretty seriously, but we have our share of fun.
We do. It helps when you like the people you work with. It helps when
you genuinely like and respect the people that you're working around. It makes a huge difference. And at the end, and really at the end, the tangible result for everybody is it makes for a better company. We do our jobs better, and that translates all the way out to the end customers because we work well together.